Welcome to the fourth episode of No Slides Attached. I'm Fede Pacheco.
And I'm Helene Cohen.
Today we're talking about security, and safety is really not an optional feature when it comes to AI. It should be in your design from the very beginning.
That is so right, Fede. I'm so shocked to learn that with the rise of AI, we've seen a huge rise in threats. Heather Deggans said in our first episode that we had 10 times more password attacks in 2023, up to 30 billion attacks.
Oh my God, then I probably should not have used password 123 as my password. But no, jokes aside, I think that we heard and we will keep hearing many times that data is the fuel for AI. And we want to, first and foremost, remind you of the benefits that the Microsoft Cloud brings in terms of safety, trust, and security. Number one is that we offer large-scale data and threat intelligence.
Number two is that we offer the most complete end-to-end protection across clouds and platforms.
Number three is that we offer industry-leading responsible AI.
And number four is that we have all the tools you need to secure and govern the use of AI in your environment.
And today, we have a very special guest. You might have heard of a famous Argentinian that moved to Miami. Well, we have one here. Facundo Monteiro is a director of go-to-market for security across the Americas. He's an expert in this topic, and we're going to talk about the latest innovations, including Copilot for Security. So welcome to No Slides Attached, Facundo.
Thank you, Fede. Thank you, Helena. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here with you.
You are very welcome. So Facundo, before we get started and before we jump into the topic, we've been asking all of our guests, what's your favorite Copilot prompt?
My favorite Copilot prompt, well, it really depends on what Copilot, right? But my M365 Copilot is always there with me. And I always said that it made me a much better writer. So every time I write something, I run it by Copilot every single time. And at least I sound a lot smarter, to be honest. So it helped me generate clarity, generate energy. So right now we're, for example, writing people's reviews, and it helped me very much kind of translate what I wanted to say in a much better way. And when we talk about Copilot for Security, the fact that you can ask this thing, hey, how do I better strengthen my security posture, and gives me many recommendations, that is my favorite by far for sure.
I can see the excitement in you. Well, you heard us talk. We were talking about the rising threats, attacks, and even the concern that leadership has across organizations because of this. So how are we addressing this at Microsoft?
Well, so look, and I think you both said something that is very, very important. With AI, a lot of goodness came with it, and a lot of threats also came with it. And you all mentioned this, but the attacks on the password attacks that have happened by second went from 579 to 4,000 attacks per second. That's huge, right? And the phishing attacks went up 47% after with this emerging of the AI. So it's really, really, really important that we take a closer look at it. So in Microsoft, we are very well aware of it. So first, of course, every time we are embedding AI in every single one of our products, including our security products, to make it faster, to make it smarter, to really give the security people or the security practitioners a way to not only react, but also be very intentional to avoid or preempt attacks at machine speed, right? Which is something that they did not have before. So we want to be quicker, not only at responding, but also at preventing versus these attacks that are happening and are happening more than ever right now,
Wow, those are some big numbers. So we are hearing that Copilot for Security is helping analysts resolve threats in minutes, not hours, which is huge. What is Copilot for Security, and how does it fit our existing security solutions?
Awesome. That's actually a great question. So Copilot for Security, and as I say, this is the first security tool and product that has generative AI embedding on it. And what it really does, it gives a way to, again, respond and preempt attacks at a machine speed, which is something that we did not have before. So the fact that you can respond within minutes instead of hours. Just think about this. Every time you were an attack happened or an incident happened, and you're a security practitioner, you had to go out and dig deep to see where the attack came from, look at the different sources of data coming into the organization and look for it, right? Now you can ask Copilot and say, hey, where did this attack come from? And within seconds, or even sometimes even minutes, you get a whole report on where it came from, where it's going, how to preempt and how to respond to that attack. So it makes it very simple for our security practitioners. I call them our defenders across the world, to really capture what others will kind of let it pass or will not be fast enough to capture it. So the fact that we have now generative AI embedded in a security product to, again, prevent and respond versus incidents, that is what Copilot for Security is. And the fact that you can talk to it in kind of natural language, right? You don't need code. You just need to run prompts, similar as M365 Copilot that we discussed before. The fact that you can talk to it naturally, it makes it a lot better and a lot more accessible for everybody.
I love pointing out how it's democratized security. And I also was wondering if you were calling them defenders or sentinels. I think both might be kind of appropriate, but you're the expert, so I guess I'm going to be calling them defenders now. But speaking about Copilot for Security here, I know it's also one of our latest release Copilots. It went generally available on April 1st, so relatively a short time ago compared to the other ones, of course. So what have we learned so far from the customer and partner deployments?
That's a very good question. So we have an early access program, so we started learning from there, and now we made it generally available, as you said, Fede, and on April 1st, and the amount of excitement that we are getting across the board, across our customers, and I must say, customers from different sizes, not only the big customers, but also the small and medium companies as well across the Americas, has been outstanding, right? So the fact that one of the kind of the things that makes people very, very excited is what I just said a few minutes ago, which is you can talk to it in natural language. I don't have to be a security expert, right? To be able to help and protect my company. So that makes it available for everybody, and people are very, very, very excited about that. Also, really, I mean, I think it's a known fact within the security community or the CISO community, the fact that the AI has really brought or expanded the surface of attacks, right? Really, that's what it has done as well. So the fact that they now have a tool to again preempt and react at a machine speed is really something that it pops up as one of the key benefits for Copilot for Security. Of course, we still need to continue learning, right? We are working with some of the key customers on, hey, what are the key use scenarios? What are you getting most benefit from? This time, again, we talk about security posture and integration with different technologies across the board. We integrate with Google Cloud, we integrate with AWS Cloud. But we need to continue working on those connectors that help secure that everybody can use it, regardless of the environment that they have right now. So those are some of the things that we are continue learning from and continue working on. Our mission and ambition is to be able to offer Copilot for Security to every company, to everybody, regardless of what technology they're working with right now. We want to protect everybody end to end. So that's our goal.
Wow. Having been a small business owner myself, just hearing you say that it's valuable to everybody. I know so many small business owners that are the CEO, the CISO, the marketing coordinator. So that is fantastic. So for our partners that want to incorporate Copilot for Security as part of their existing security practice, what advice would you give them to kind of get started?
Yeah. It's funny because I just this week I had many conversations with the partners, and this is probably the first question that they ask. Hey, what are your recommendations, right? And what I said is, hey, first of all, we're learning about this together, right? And again, about usage scenarios, best prompts for our customers, so I think that, hey, jump on board with us and learn with us and get skilled on Copilot for Security. I think it will be very, very important. That would be my first recommendation. And my second recommendation is, hey, I always say this with any Copilot, by the way. We need to make sure that our customers are protected end to end so that they can find the best value of Copilot for Security, but also, that they can really make this real. So let me give you an example. If a customer does not have an identity or an identity or a cloud security environment in which they took care of, hey, how do I defend my passwords? How I put multi-factor authentication to run my identities? How I make sure that everybody's protected? Copilot for Security will serve for nothing. You will run a prompt, you will ask how to better my security posture, and nothing is gonna be there. So just like Fede, you said, hey, data is the oxygen for AI, right? Having a good security posture is the basic for adding value to Copilot for Security. Copilot for Security is like kind of the end goal, but we need to make sure that the security environment of the customer is protected. And the reality is that many customers are not there yet. So what I would say is, don't think about security Copilot for Security as a one product that you can sell it kind of one-off, and this is the kind of the shiny thing. But make sure that you protect your customers end to end, and you take them through our whole security platform to help them get protection. Because if not, they will not add a lot of value to their customers. That will be my recommendation.
Man, I want to stand and clap. Like, that was so inspiring that we might have ended it there, because we love asking for advice, because that's what partners do. And it's encouraging to hear, hey, there's so much need for this. That's an opportunity for every single partner out there. And while we asked you about the partners that already have a security practice, we want to dive deeper with this last question, because there's a lot of partners out there trying to deploy AI projects, but they're not security partners yet, or they haven't had really a developed security practice. So if you're in that scenario where you're doing something else with AI and they're not in security yet, what advice would you give them?
Thanks for the question, Fede. Look, the way I think about partners is that they are the trusted advisor for our customers, right? Our customers trust them, right? They have a relationship with customers, some even customers that we don't have or we have not reached out to, right? So partners are very, 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 very important, and customers trust them by default, right? So it doesn't matter if today they are, providing services around M365 or business applications or the future of work or even data and AI, right? It doesn't matter. Security is everywhere, right? And that's one of the things that we are even our CEO Satya Nadella is mentioning in the last build just last week or a few weeks ago. Security is everywhere. So security is not only about talking about security as a whole new thing or a whole different thing that needs to happen on the side or in parallel of any project. We need to take care of the security posture in any projects that we have. Their customers are going to request that, right? So my recommendation is, you don't need, if you can have a security practice, of course, that will be great, but I also understand that this is not possible across the board. But if you're not a security partner that you provide against security services, make sure that you are in whatever you are positioning and asking your customers to do, make sure that you know that you're the trusted advisor, and the security has to be there by default in every single project that they have, right? So that would be my recommendation.
In every single product and from the very beginning of the design, as we like to say.
Exactly, from the very beginning. And to be honest, again, speaking transparently and openly, if a customer has an incident, they're not gonna be thinking, "Hey, who is my security partner?" Right? If it comes from different services, they're gonna look at them, right? And
Yeah.
say, make sure that, hey, if you migrated my servers, why wasn't it secure by default? Why do I need to bring someone else? They expect them to help when they were again implementing that particular project. So security has to be everywhere. Security has to be there by default, and security has to happen across all the projects that the customer has.
Facu, thank you so much for joining us, for giving us this first half of an amazing episode. And now we're going to talk to actually a security partner. So you just set us up for an amazing second half of our episode. Really appreciate your time, and you're welcome to come back anytime you want.
I love this. Thank you both for the invitation. I am looking forward to continue protecting our customers and partners in the Americas end to end. That's kind of what I'm here for. Thank you.
For the second part of our episode, we have an amazing partner with us. They're one of the world's foremost deployers of Microsoft's Extended Detection and Response, or XDR technology, including Copilot for Security. They were actually one of the 4 partners on the Microsoft Copilot for Security Design Advisory Council, and they are also multiple-time winners of Security Partner of the Year in the Microsoft Partner of the Year Awards. From BlueVoyant, we have Micah Heaton here. He's the Executive Director of the Managed Security Center of Excellence. He is also joining us from the beautiful Bear Lake in Idaho from his vacation. So we're double thank you for joining us. Micah, welcome to No Slides Attached.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here. I usually live in Seattle, but I'm grateful to join you today. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to make a contribution.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll live vicariously through you and your beautiful lake house there. So before we get started, we've been asking other guests about their favorite Copilot prompt, but we hear through the grapevine that you're using Copilot maybe in a slightly different way. Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, sure. I've shared this a couple times on webinars. I probably used all of the generative AI tools roughly like 1,500 to 2,000 hours now between Copilot for Security and ChatGPT and the other ones. And it's really helped me a lot in my parenting. I know this is kind of a interesting take, but I have a 7-year-old, and he is quite a character. And he's getting to that place where sometimes I ask him to do something and he kind of squares his shoulders and he says no to me. And I'm like, what? But it's taught me working with the generative AI tools that it's really about learning how to prompt. And when I first saw prompt engineering showing up on resumes, I was like, that's not a thing. Stop that. We need to stop that right now. Nobody needs to put that on their resume. And I am done a complete 180 on this now. It's so important to think about prompting in terms of engineering, that how you refine it over time. And it's really got me thinking about the way that I interact with my children. So my 2-year-old obviously is in a different place, different context. He might be playing with the burner on the gas stove. And if I don't prompt him correctly to corral the behavior of a little thing, that will become a bigger problem. And my 7-year-old's in a different place, is quite articulate. And I need to frame things in a way that is on his level. And so depending on the use case, we really kind of change our dynamic in Code Switch a little bit. And I have been very surprised to learn as an individual, as a human, and as a parent because of the way that I've been interacting with these tools. It's really taught me a lot.
I'm personally going to become a dad this year later.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
Double the reason to take more prompt engineering classes now. I'm sure I'll ask you for some recommendations later,
sure.
Micah. Now, going back to security, Micah, can you tell us about your recent success deploying Copilot for Security?
Yeah, for sure. So mentioned in the introduction, BlueVoyant was one of 4 partners in the Design Advisory Council. And what that meant is that we had access to behind-the-scenes look at Copilot for Security. We were in a bit of a feedback loop with Microsoft's product teams around the technology. We had the opportunity to support customers that were part of something called the EAP, the Early Access Program. And those were customers who were willing to essentially pay to test the technology and support its development. And so we had a number of customers. BlueVoyant supports managed services, contracts for customers that either don't have the bandwidth or they need some additional support to manage things like Sentinel, M365 Defenders, as well as Defender for Cloud. Those all happen to be the building blocks in some of the core requisite technology that drives operational excellence in Copilot for Security. So naturally, the customers that we were already supporting in the other Microsoft security tools were asking us for assistance to figure out their use cases for Copilot for Security. And much like when Sentinel was launched, it was amazing technology out of the gate. It had all the scaffolding and building blocks to be a mature, capable technology, but maybe missing some of the third-party integrations that were really required by our SMC and enterprise customers in order to drive the security outcomes that they were looking for. So the first thing that we noticed with Copilot for Security is folks were really intrigued by the ability to interrogate alerts and incidences within the native Microsoft tools. But a lot of our customers, as much as they are adopted on Microsoft technology, are also using other things. So we had some customers that were using some other mail hygiene software, for instance. Proofpoint is a technology that they were using in addition to Defender for Office. So they were using these technologies in a symbiotic way. One technology was doing something out in front, and then Defender for Office was sitting behind the scenes doing good work on behalf of the internal operation. And their question to us was, hey, can you help us figure out how to get these things to talk to each other? We're like, we think we can. We probably really can. Copilot for Security has all of the tools in the box that allow us to build connective tissue between these things. And so what we did is we essentially built a plugin that allows Copilot for Security to enable Defender for Office to also talk to Proofpoint to say when a user submits an email as a suspected phishing attempt, we want these things to compare notes in a way that they aren't inherently able to do. One of Microsoft's, two things. Two things that Microsoft is amazing at, in my opinion, is the connective tissue between the native Microsoft products. They all talk to each other. So if something happens in Defender for Office or something happens on the endpoint in Defender for Endpoint, they're already communicating and sharing notes. The other thing that Microsoft does really, really well is allows third-party technology to integrate into the system via Entra, formerly Azure Active Directory. And so we were able to tap into that native backbone and build kind of a nerve system that allows those two things to talk to each other. So the plugin goes and fetches some information from Proofpoint, fetches some information from Defender for Office, and evaluates whether or not via threat intelligence available from Microsoft and some of our own proprietary threat intelligence, if that phishing attempt was genuinely problematic. And then we can trigger some automations. Copilot for Security also has this excellent capability to trigger logic applications that say, hey, if we've determined that something bad is happening, go do the following things. In this case, eradicate the email, like just remove it, and then go find wherever else it is, in the other inboxes. But potentially some additional things like revoke an MFA token for a user so that they're no longer logging in if there's a potential compromise situation until they re-authenticate.
MFA is multi-factor authentication, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. Multi-factor authentication. It's that thing on your phone that says, did you attempt to sign in from this city? And as soon as customers started asking us questions like, hey, can it do this? Can it do that? The light bulbs were just going off with our internal engineering and product teams. And we have found the technology to be truly remarkable. And I think that we're only going to see genuinely incredible results over the next 18 months.
That's awesome, Micah. Can you also tell us a little bit about how you've added Copilot for Security to your practice with your proprietary technology?
Yeah, 100%. So while BlueVoyant is one of the world's foremost deployers of Microsoft security technology, we're super bullish on our relationship with Microsoft and how they've catapulted into the security rankings over the past few years in Gartner and Forrester. it's really just off to the races. It's wild. Bluevoyant also has some security technology of our own. We have a service and essentially a service that supports customers in their external security requirements. We call it supply chain defense. And what it is when you're an organization, you typically don't do everything in-house. Sometimes you have dependencies and relationships on third-party vendors where third-party technology or solutions do something on behalf of your organization. And a lot of times, organizations aren't always thinking in terms of security for their external providers and vendors as well. So if you think about this in terms of layers, we've got like an internal core. That's our internal operations. That's our own engineering. That's the laptops and servers we have inside our own house, inside our own castle, maybe, so to speak. And then our vendors have servers and endpoints and their own technology, and they probably even have vendors and providers. And so we have kind of a daisy chain of potential vulnerability that we want to help customers wrap their minds around and build operational resilience so that if something falls down further down in that chain of vendors, the supply chain, that it doesn't end up rolling back up into a cascading effect of problems. And we see this all the time. When you're watching CNN at 6 at night and you see some vulnerability has been exploited and is sweeping the world every few months, it seems like this happens. That supply chain defense is really intended to help protect that external event from becoming something that harms our customers and our shared customers of Microsoft internally. What we found is that leveraging Copilot for Security, there is a way for us to build additional plugins and capability for customers to interrogate those signals. So right now, Copilot for Security, I could say something like, hey, according to Entra, how many malicious IPs are essentially trying to sign into my organization? So IPs that have been known by Microsoft's threat intelligence research to be doing bad things throughout the world. What our supply chain defense plugin allows us to do is have customers ask, what's happening potentially downstream? So our plugin activates the visibility beyond the Microsoft ecosystem, beyond the native licenses and subscriptions in Azure and M365, to the downstream implication for those vendors. And that's really incredible, widening the aperture of visibility for Copilot for Security to see beyond the internal organization and review the external consideration is really game-changing. And we're really excited to bring that to the market. It's a service that we've offered for years and years at this point, but Copilot for Security puts at the fingertips of all of our customers the ability to easily interrogate, what are the malicious IPs that Entra is telling us? Also, is there an implication that's happening in this particular vendor or this provider? And then Copilot for Security can go read our database and say, well, yeah, in fact, that same IP address was seen at this provider, this vendor, this contractor, this auditor, and that is truly remarkable. Good question. Thank you for asking.
It's just exciting to see what we were achieving together. I also, since you were an early access user and deployer of Copilot for Security, and with all your experience, we have to ask you what has been the impact for your organization and your business so far.
Yeah, we use it internally as well. And I think it's really important for every CISO and every organization to think about putting up some genuine guidance in terms of leveraging these generative AI tools. Because before our CISO even said, hey, this is how we're going to use them, this is what we're going to use them for, and this is where you can access them, I was using like 4 different tools on my own every single day. And I got to thinking, it's really important for our CISO and our organizations to put up these guardrails, because otherwise there's all of this activity that's happening without the organization even knowing. And I think what's been incredible is like we're using M365 Copilot internally at this point, which is truly remarkable. A completely different hemisphere of capability than Copilot for Security, but just roughly to kind of paint the picture, M365 Copilot allows us to build presentations, to redraft emails, to do a lot of kind of intrapersonal interaction in different ways. And Copilot for Security allows us to really interrogate the risk and threats that exist in our organization. And even though we do a lot of work for customers, we also support our own internal organization of roughly 1,000 people in the same way. And so our content and engineering teams that support our customers, our security operations center analysts that support our customers, those are the humans that sit in the watchtowers 24/7 to make sure that there's no fires that aren't being put out in customer environments, are leveraging these same tools to say, hey, the alert says this. Can you give me a little bit more detail? Or is there a second or third order effect or implication that I'm not thinking about? What else should I be looking out for before I close this ticket out on behalf of a customer? It allows us to just do that next level activity, take that next step, go the extra mile, write more robust reports on behalf of customers that say these are the additional things that we found. And it's really just supercharged our capability on behalf of our internal operation as well as for our customers. So we are super bullish on Copilot for Security in particular, but the opportunity for these things to be ubiquitously adopted in the next 6, 9, 18 months is truly remarkable, and we're here for it.
And I imagine at the same way, it's added a lot of value to your business.
Yeah, we have a very strong relationship with Microsoft, even though we were pretty young in the marketplace a few years ago. I think the thing that we've been able to do really well is establish value and build capital with the Microsoft field. And this is a very, very important topic for customers. And sometimes those customers don't always come directly to us. They're actually asking Microsoft. And so Microsoft, at the moment, obviously the marketing buzz for all the generative AI tools, we got Copilot for GitHub, Copilot for Services, M365 Copilot, Copilot for Security. We've got a lot of different generative AI capability that's happening. And the Microsoft field, the Microsoft organization is answering the bell by saying, hey, you should probably talk to BlueVoyant. They're a really good partner who understands the concerns, not just of deploying it, but also the advantages of deploying it, the risks possibly of deploying it without oversight and governance. So even just in terms of pipeline and the opportunity to work with customers and the opportunity to support the activation of services and deployment opportunity, we've really had the opportunity to just be thought leaders and spend time with customers. So even before we get to scoping a business opportunity, we've been spending a lot of time with customers that we've never talked to before. We'll give them 1 to 2 hours to just brainstorm together. And I think that's been really, really important. Before we define what the sales opportunity is, we really need to understand the concerns, aches, pains that customers are having in terms of adopting. And so sometimes customers, they just want to know, hey, if I turn this on, will somebody internal have access to information that maybe they shouldn't? So if I give them a license or the ability to access Copilot for Security, can they see things about devices that they otherwise couldn't see before? What are the proper guardrails? How do we put up compliance mechanics that really allow us to protect the organization internally as well? And those are really important questions. And we weren't always thinking about it like that. So the more that we've been able to sit down with customers and explore their use cases and just listen more than anything, as opposed to just telling them what we think is best and you should do everything we say, the opportunity to listen to customers has just been coming in waves and waves. And we're so grateful for that relationship with Microsoft to allow us to kind of sit as the glue between the deployment of the technology and the maximizing of the utility of the technology. We're tremendously grateful for that.
Thanks, Micah. That's such great insight for our listeners. Before we wrap up today, what's some advice that you might give to your peers that want to make this technology, part of their offerings for their customers? I think you kind of talked a little bit about it already by saying, listen to your customers, but I'll let you.
Yeah. Listening is so important, but I also think that the humanity of the AI is really, really important. And I hear a lot of chatter that AI is going to replace this. It's going to take a job away, or it's going to make the need for the human element go away. That's just not true. The humanity in what we do in security is super important, and the humanness of our interaction is super important. Going back to that parenting analogy, the way we cultivate relationships with these tools is really about investigating the value of the human interaction, because the way all of these tools work is to take our human need and the way that we talk to each other and the way that we treat each other as humans and convert that and translate that into a programmatic outcome. So literally, humanity is built into the bedrock, the foundation of these AI tools. And so I would just say that any organization that is thinking about adopting and deploying the AI technology to very much think about this in terms of enriching the human experience in your internal organization and the way that you cultivate relationships amongst yourselves as well as the downstream community, whether it's customers or other organizations that you support. So that's probably going to be my message for the next 2 years, honestly, as this technology is just continuing to take off, is remember the humanity of it is super important and lives at the very core of all of this AI.
Thank you so much, Micah, for joining us today and for representing BlueVoyant. Super excited to see what's on the horizon for your organization and the things that you're going to do. So again, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to having another chat with you sometime in the near future.
You got it. I'm so grateful to be here and make some new friends. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Micah, thank you so much. I love that we started this episode on the threats and the increase in passwords attacks. And Helene and I were scared. And now you ended up with humanity, happiness, and how this is going to make everyone better. And stay tuned. This is just episode 4. For the next episode, we're going to talk more about data. We're going to talk about Copilot for Microsoft Fabric. We're going to bring in some experts to share their experience. So we can't wait for that next. We hope today's conversations have ignited fresh perspectives and inspired you to take new opportunities in this changing landscape of AI.
Stay tuned for more insights and stories on No Slides Attached. Be sure to listen in and follow us at noslidesAttached.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.